Okay, stay up here, wait. Okay, guys, I'm back. Do I have to invite people back in now?
No, it's live.
All right. All right, I'm live. Hang on, I'm texting people to tell them that I'm live. If you guys could just, again, sign in. I don't know what in the world happened. All right. Tell everybody to sign back in, please. Period. All right. So here's what we got before we were so rudely cut off. Again, you are going to have a 45-minute DBQ. And that's basically the entire test. There's no multiple choice. There's no LEQ. There's no SAQs. And I have a Google Doc. I'm just kind of putting the finishing tweaks on that will give you all the particulars of the test. I've also been working on kind of like how we did that little mini LEQ chart. We're going to do a mini DBQ chart to practice. Sometimes we'll do a full chart. Sometimes I'll just say, hey, do the documents and do one particular part of it. So you're not going to get you're not be doing DBQs like every day, guys. Okay. So again, you have 45 minutes to write and then 5 minutes to upload this thing. You're going to be allowed to type it. They will even let you handwrite it and take a picture of it. Those of you guys, especially who aren't great handwriters, I don't know if I'd want you to do that. So there's one DBQ question, and here's your particulars. It's 5 documents. You have to use at least 4. If you think about it, in the past, normally we have 7 docs. You have to use 6. Now they're telling you 5 and use 4. So I'll be honest with you. I don't know that I would use 5 just because of your shortened time period. And you have 45 minutes to plan and to write the sucker. You have to have a historically defensible thesis. You can't just tell me that there are a lot of changes. You have to tell me, guys, hey, look, although there were certain continuities throughout time regarding the issue of American foreign policy, such as, you have to give that for instance, such as when I was doing that practice mini LEQ, CCOT, some of you guys were kind of dropping the ball with that. You then need to acknowledge there were also continuities or things that didn't change that much, such as, okay? Remember, your thesis can be more than one sentence, okay? You have to use at least 4 documents. Now, they are looking for at least two really good pieces of outside info as a minimum. I want you to follow the rule of, guys, you want to have at least one good piece of outside info per document. We want to bomb them because sometimes, guys, what I found is you guys end up writing some outside information. It helps with the historical context of the document. So I want you to keep that the same, okay? You're still going to have to do your synthesis. You're still going to have to do contextualization, okay? The key is going to be what they said last night in this teleconference was that they realized that, guys, this is an open notes test, okay? They are looking more for your application of skill. Can you show that you actually have skills? This is not so much about which kid can Google the most stuff. All right. So you have to do a good job with hippos on your documents. Not just tell me who the intended audience was, but tell me why it's important for the purpose of your argument. And the chart that I'm going to give you when we start doing assignments from now on, you'll see I'm going to force you to do that. Don't just tell me what the purpose of this is. Tell me this is relevant to the argument, to the greater argument, because it's calling for the changes that we see here, blah, 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 blah. Okay. In terms of the rubric itself, I'm going to post that to you guys. You'll get that as well from me. You will get 1 point for a thesis. Just like you normally do, it has to be a thesis that responds to the prompt. You can't just restate it. It needs to be 1 or more sentences. You get your point for contextualization, so that's 2. Evidence. Evidence looks like it's going to be 5 points. according to this, okay? You're going to get 1 point for using the contents of at least 2 documents to address your point. You're going to get another point for supporting your argument by using your documents. Don't just describe the documents. Tell me why they help your argument. Get another point for using 4 documents. You get 1 point for one piece of outside information. You get another point for a second piece. So basically, it's like there's 2 outside points and there's 3 outside info points. Analysis and reasoning are going to be 3 points this year, guys. You get 1 point when you explain the author's point of view. When you hippos one document, you get another point if you explain another. Then you get a 3rd point for doing your analysis, okay? And that's the old synthesis stuff, guys. Just we always talk about connecting outside of time periods. Now, why does that matter? Because when we do our stuff from here on out, I'm going to take this DBQ rubric. I'm going to kind of give you a little bit of a mock-up of it so you can check. But it is really important, guys, that you make sure you follow this. We're going to have to practice this too. We have to practice the time periods. So when I give you these assignments now, I'm asking you on your honor system, I need you guys to time yourself and then just tell me what your time was. Okay? Mr. Ash, I got it done in 42 minutes. Mr. Ash, I needed 47. Well, we know that's not going to be good on test day, but we're going to have to practice that. All right. Next thing I want to talk about, and this is a big deal. Guys, this is an open notes test. Now, in terms of practicality, if you remember, first week of school, I gave you guys an open notes test on your summer homework, and some of you didn't have enough time. You cannot just sit there and go, oh, I'll just look stuff up. We're going to work on trying to come up with like common themes. I'm thinking CCOT type of stuff. That way, throughout a time period, if they give us a topic, like we're going to put together something where it's like, here's African-American civil rights across these time periods. Here's women's rights. Here's foreign policy across these time periods. You want to have certain kind of go-to things that you already have a thought process. Otherwise, you're not going to have enough time. In college, I took open notes tests, and I remember the first time I ever did, I thought, piece of cake. The way this is going to be, guys, is you have to study for this still. You can't crutch. It's not going to work. I learned that the hard way. It's the only advantage of being old. You make mistakes, and you kind of get buried with it from there. So you're still going to want to have stuff. Now, the other more important thing is this has to be you. They spent more than half this presentation last night going on and on and on about how much they're doing for security. They kept saying, look, they're going to lose money on the test this year, that this is all on their costs. And they said they're investing all this money in security. They are going to be doing some kind of like screening stuff to verify that you are you, and it's not like your super smart sibling taking the test. They are using language recognition software. They have a Go Guardian type of thing they're going to be using, and they're going to be able to like check to see if they're like, all of a sudden, I wrote this, another kid wrote that. So basically, it's open notes. But you are not allowed to use other people for help. You can't be on your phone calling people because they're looking for pattern recognition and stuff like that. They're going to get you, guys, if you go into chat rooms and stuff like that. And they have it abundantly clear that if you get caught cheating, they are going to come down on you hard, sending, the fact that you got caught cheating to every college that gets SAT and AP results, barring you from taking, other tests from the college board, stuff like that. So please take this seriously, guys. They're not playing around. You need to make sure that you are doing your own work. It's your own words. Okay? But I know you guys, and you're good kids, and I don't have to worry about that. But I just need you to understand that part. So again, you have a 45-minute DBQ, 5 documents. The test, Jake, is still going to be out of 5. Yep, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That scoring is the same. They just, because of the nature of how wacky things are, they have this rubric. So if we're looking here, there's 3 points for analysis. There's 5 for evidence. It's a 10-point rubric. Don't ask me because I have no idea what you need to get out of 10 in order to get a 3, a 4, or 5. They haven't told us that. They are actually going to release your tests to the teachers, what your answers were, no later, they said, than May 26th. So I'll actually be able to see what your DBQ was. Okay. So that's big. So what's that mean for us? It means, as of right now, we are going to work just off of this idea of let's perfect our DBQs. If you notice the last assignment I gave you some an LEQ and I gave you some SAQs because I was trying to hodgepodge. Now that we know exactly what they're going to do, we're going to hammer that. On Monday, you have your last new thing for a very long time. Cold War, the Red Scare at home. And the only reason I'm keeping that, and not saying we're starting review right away, is there are some very good connections for what you're going to learn from me on Monday that will help you with, let's say, we're going to do the second Red Scare. You can connect that back to the first Red Scare in the 1920s. That's period 3. You can connect that back to the Salem witch trials in period 2. Now, I know the DBQ prompt is 3 to 7, but you might be able to draw something in there for whatever. Popular culture type of references. So I just want to do that. Plus, I can use some documents from that time period where we can start working on the skills. Now, I sent you and your parents, and I posted up on the classroom an email today. One of the other points of emphasis they made was those AP Live videos on YouTube, which are very good, by the way, that the instructors are being told to emphasize as part of their lectures, helping kids practice the skills that they're going to be graded on for the test. Stuff like sourcing of documents, your hippos, stuff like thesis development. I am not going to mandate that, guys. I mean, I'm being practical here, but I'm asking / begging you, use those things as much as humanly possible. Ben, are they going to give out an example of what this would look like when it's put together? They said they're going to provide some practice stuff, Bennett. So when I get something, I will. I have their rubric. I will show that to you. I actually was working today with Mrs. Kiwanis, and for our 2 classes, we're trying to put stuff together. So your assignment on Monday is going to be the best tweaked out version of like a what you're going to do type of thing. That's why I want you to time yourself. Okay, guys? Really important, though. The other thing is make sure no matter what you do, remember, you have a thesis. Your thesis is your argument. Your thesis is the heart and soul of your paper. It has to have a historically defensible claim. It's not just, copying the prompt, but it's something that you're going to prove that you can back up with a line of reasoning. You have to very clearly, and some of you guys, when we did that little LAQ the other day, didn't do a good job of this. Whatever the skill is they want, if it's changed, that means CCOT. That means your thesis has to include the idea of this changed, but this stayed the same. If it's causation, you want to clearly express, okay, these were the most important factors that caused blah, 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 blah. And then you either talk about what it resulted in or say, these factors were more important than these factors because blah, 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 blah. You got to have that because statement. Or it might be a comparison essay. There were similarities that were important. These similarities were blah, blah, blah. They were important because blah, blah, blah. However, the differences caused blah, 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 blah. And then everything you do has to go back to that. Where sometimes we get a little bit lost, guys, is sometimes we kind of flip a little bit and we just describe documents. Document 1 says blah, blah. Instead, remember, it's document 1 proves the idea that there were continuities both before and after this event or throughout this time period. As you can clearly see in this document written by Mike Eschbacher, this happens. When you do your hippos part, again, the idea is you're picking one part, historical context, intended audience, purpose, or point of view, explaining what it is, but then most importantly, why that supports your argument. Why does that kick back to this idea of continuity or change or comparison for similarities and differences or causation? When you do that synthesis point, again, hammer it that, look, there, this comes back to such and such an issue. Okay. All right. So one thing I want you guys to do, hopefully you have your AmScope. If you have a pen or a pencil, that'd be great. If you want to do this on air, everybody turn to page 649. We're going to practice this sucker just for a little bit. Okay. And this is not going to be a super long review class because I'm getting all this information. I know I threw a lot at you. Monday's assignment we'll have a little bit more of a thing for you there. All right. If you look on page 649, there's document 1. And I'd like you to take a couple minutes and just look at that document. And then you're going to bang me in the comment section. Okay? You're going to give me my answers as we do this in the comment section. All right. So the essay that we have up here says, compare and contrast the roles of the federal government. So now they're telling you what kind of essay this is. Comparison. We're looking for similarities and differences. So if you were to write a thesis, you are looking in your thesis to identify similarities and differences and explain the importance of them. Okay? Compare and contrast the roles of the federal government and the civil rights activists in achieving the goals of the civil rights movement from 1945 through 1968. So everybody right now, look at that document and tell me, what is the H? What's the historical context that's going on right now? Just type me a sentence. Put that in the comments, please. I'll give you about 1 more minute, guys. Just looking for H, historical circumstances. What's going on around the document? All right. So if we're looking at historical circumstances in document 1, I always cheat. I always look at what the source itself says. Sometimes even that helps with context. Source is Harry S. Truman. It says 1948, President's Committee on Equality of Treatment and Opportunity in the Armed Forces. All right, so what do we know? It's 1948. What laws still exist in the South? Jim Crow laws. Okay. Now remember, those were created after Reconstruction, but they're still around. This is still the segregated South. In fact, the Democratic Party back then had its own wing of the Southern Democrats called the Dixiecrats, who were pro-segregationists. You might then talk about struggles, in the years prior to this. African Americans had fought for their civil rights. Talk about the double V signs. V for victory against the Nazis, but also V for victory for equality. You could have talked about the Supreme Court case of Smith versus Allwright, which basically said it's illegal to discriminate to keep people out of political parties. You could mention the fact that we had just completed fighting World War II against racism. However, America was still segregated. And, during World War II, we discriminated against Japanese Americans. You also might want to mention it's 1948, which means it's during the Cold War. Okay? All these things play into historical context. Now, what we haven't learned about yet, and which we're going to pause on, was this was also part of what's called Harry Truman's Fair Deal. Gee, what a shock. FDR had the New Deal. Truman's got the Fair Deal. And one of the things that Truman's going to be really, really big on is he's going to be completely for civil rights. He draws a line in the sand, and it really hurts his popularity. Okay? If you look at this document, this is Harry Truman ordering, in the second paragraph, it is declared to be the policy of the president that there should be equality of treatment in the armed forces. He desegregates the armed forces. Okay? Now, that's great. I did hippos, but I have to explain why it matters, why it's important. So now I look at my essay prompt. What's the role of the federal government or civil rights activists in achieving the civil rights from 45 to 68? And then I say, as shown by document 1, the historical circumstances of this document were designed to try to change the civil rights status of African Americans by President Truman desegregating the military. If you did intended audience, okay, this is from Harry Truman basically ordering the U.S. military to desegregate. Why does that matter? You could say, look, the intended audience matters because how could we fight a war against racism in World War II and now try to fight a war against communism if we aren't owning up to our own issues? Purpose, very clear. Truman wishes to desegregate the United States military, but now explain why. Why? Because Truman felt it was important to have the United States act and deal with segregation issues like the Jim Crow laws. Okay? All right, take a look at document 2, which is on page 650. Now, I'm going to make it easier for you. Take a look at document 4, which is on 651. Okay. Do me a favor. I'd like historical circumstances for document 4. It's the 60s. We haven't done this much, but see if you can do anything with it. All right. Type for me, guys. Take your best guesstimate. What do you see for historical circumstances for document 4? Remember, sometimes it's in the photograph. It can also be in the caption. You will have 5 documents on May 15th. They have told us one document will be non-text, meaning one of your documents will be a cartoon, will be a map, be a photo, maybe a chart. Got 10 more seconds. I want to see a couple more people. All right. Good job. Historical circumstances. This is part of MLK's March on Washington. It's 1963, which is actually stated up in there. But we know that more importantly, this is where MLK gave the famous I Have a Dream speech. Now, why does this matter? We didn't learn about it, but 1960s, we know that Martin Luther King was fighting for civil rights. Some of you mentioned at the same time you had people like Malcolm X who had different points of view. One of the things that this March on Washington helps lead to is the passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. So if you know that, okay, the event shown in the document leads to something else, that's historical circumstances. If you know that an event happened because of something, if a document happened because of something, that's historical circumstances. All right, one more, just for the purpose of this exercise here. I want you to look at document 3. And I am looking for point of view. Can you do that one for me, please? Document 3, looking at point of view. I remember in science class, apparently Pluto doesn't have a mantle. It's just mostly ice and then more like mantle. It has like a metal core. No. It's a type of planet. It's a class type. Pretty much wrong. Apparently, it has like a mantle. I don't know. It's the name of Greek god. Anyway, apparently it has a core. All right. So this is George Wallace. George Wallace, little background information. He is the governor of Alabama, which you should be able to get from the document. But George Wallace's most famous quote was segregation now and segregation forever. He is the governor of Alabama. Most of you picked up that he is a Democrat, that because we talked about that term solid South, he is pro-segregation. So, point of view, yes, it's pro-segregation, but that doesn't get you the point. The essay prompt says, compare and contrast the roles of the federal government and the civil rights activists in achieving these goals. Now tell me, okay, you got his point of view. You know he's pro-segregation. What's that got to do with the essay? I need to see a couple of you guys type something in there. Why does that matter? Why does that P in hippo matter? Do that for me now, please. All right, come on, hit me. Okay, this does show that the country is still divided. Good job, Bennett. Not everybody agrees with what the federal government is trying to do. Qualify that even more, Bennett. Be as explicit as you can. Be all vocabulicious. You know, hey, we're talking about segregation, that you have actual state governments refusing to be desegregated. Okay? He was against integrating schools. What school in particular, though? George Wallace is the guy who wants to keep public schools, colleges, and universities all segregated. Lily, he's trying to use states' rights. Now, here's where you say to yourself, self, wait a minute. He's trying to use states' rights as an argument. Type it for me. Come on, guys. What other guy in American history did we learn about who was all about states' rights? Come on. Type that name and I'll be happy. See, now you've really qualified your argument. Now you're also getting some of that connection. What's the name of that guy who you could say maybe George Wallace read about or was inspired by, or at least he was acting like? He was from South Carolina. Good job, Mr. John C. Calhoun. Correct. I can hear you kind of doing that rednecky. Seaburn, it's okay that you misspelled that. All right. Do you guys understand what we got to do better with? See, here's the thing. They know you're going to have outside information. We're going to have to anyway. It's more important to, when you give that outside info, to explain it. But when you do your hippos, so you got to use 4 docs. Analyze them, explain them, but explain why they fit your argument. You got to do one part of hippo, of HIP, H-I-P-P, for 2 docs. 2. 2, count them. 2. But then explain why it matters, why it's relevant to your argument. So if you've got, think about this. Think about this sentence I would want you to write. Document 3 is a proclamation from George Wallace, governor of Alabama. In it, Wallace clearly states that he is opposed to desegregation efforts. He brings up the argument of states' rights in a fashion similar to the way that John Calhoun brought up the idea of states' rights prior to the Civil War. Now the money sentence. This shows why it was so important for the federal government to take a stand. Because if the governor of a state was going to adamantly oppose integration and civil rights, individuals or groups associated with the civil rights movement would not be able to fight back unless they had the help of the federal government. Remember, it's Alabama in the 1960s. George Wallace's Alabama, where you see the TV footage. And this is where I miss you guys teaching you stuff, but you may have seen this. The civil rights marchers in Alabama having police dogs attack them, having fire hoses turned on them. Okay? The chief of police in Birmingham, Alabama was this guy named Eugene Bull Connor. Martin Luther King once said that Bull Connor did more for civil rights than any African-American man ever could do. Why? Because when Bull Connor did all of his brutality, police dogs and fire hoses, it was broadcast on live on TV news, and people up in the north saw it, and it was in their face, and they had no choice but to act. So that's what we have to do, guys, and that's what I'm going to work on with you most of the time. Okay? So on Monday, you're going to get an assignment about the Red Scare, because I do like the connections, and it's a fun thing. I got Marvel comic stuff for you guys in there, okay? And then you're going to do your first mini DBQ, and it'll specify in there. I want you to write out this part, and I'll let you bullet other parts. I'm going to grade it, guys, like a DBQ. I'll grade it out of this 10-point scale. I'm asking you to time it so that you can practice it. Now, if you don't like your grade on the 10-point scale, it's okay. I will make sure there's plenty of opportunities for you to fact grade. I need you guys to start thinking of it this way. I'm going to grade you like these AP people. Yes, you can have outside information. We know that. But you've got to show me that analysis. You've got to make sure it's in your own words. You can't copy anything. By the way, that includes my notes. Because, hey, they've got handwriting analysis and stuff like that. This is all you. You have to craft it. Okay? While I'm still on, any more questions? Help me out here, guys. If I get at least one question, I feel good. I know you're thinking. Because I know y'all want the weekend. So do I. And that gives me more time. I won't lie. I don't have much of a weekend. I'm going to be doing stuff for you guys this weekend. Last call. All right. I will have more for you. Like I said, On Monday's post, it will have the AP rubric, and we will use a modified version of what you see on Monday. That's how we're going to be doing business to review. We're going to review periods 1 and 2, because even though the DBQ says it's from 3 and 7, we have to do a quickie review because there's a chance you can draw on something from 1 and 2. We're going to hammer 3 through 7. Obviously, we just got done with 7, so probably be a little bit more with 3 through 6. I've been posting study guides up on the classroom. You saw I have a court case one, a little PowerPoint that I made. I put a period 1, a period 2, and a period 7 study guide up there. My goal was to get one for 3, 4, 5, and 6 as well. And check out those AP College Board programs they're putting up on YouTube. For the content when they get back into periods 1 through 7, but B, because they're going to talk about the skills. And that's going to be the money thing, guys. Okay? So, till then, log off and plug in your Chromies, homies.